It's time for the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast, a podcast so good it doesn't need a name. So without any further ado, here's your host, JD. Take it away, Johnny.
Hello my friends, and welcome to episode 34 of the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast, recorded on February 22nd, 2014. I almost said 2013 there. Going really far back on that one. I'm your host JD aka Gaddick, and in today's episode we'll be talking about the 2.7 class changes. They've released new ones, some of them good, and some of them really bad. So we'll be discussing that for sure. Also this week we'll be talking about the Season 1 ranked PvP rewards, and how it actually may drive some players to do PvP if you show them what the rewards are. You know, that's a really novel idea there. All this an idea fresh off my personal wall of crazy? Let's force leap right in. Red 2, I've got a topic coming in hot requesting clearance to engage.
Lock S foils and attack positions. You are cleared to discuss.
So Friday, if you did not know, Eric Musco dropped another set of class changes that we can expect to be hitting in patch 2.7. Some good stuff here, and then we'll talk about the operative stuff last, because that's obviously the most controversial here. So let's just run through what we got. First off, we have changes for the Sorc/Sage. We have Fade Out, which is the ability that makes you a full moon from movement impairing abilities on your force speed and breaks you out of out of snares and slows and stuff. So that is being moved to tier 2 in the corruption tree. That is the healing tree. This was originally a tier 4 ability, I think. So this just gives sages, DPS sages specifically, the ability to grab this talent if they can get into the second tier of the healing tree, which I think is very possible with most healing builds, so that's pretty cool for PvP. And then also the focal lightning buff that we talked about last time now decreases the force cost of lightning strike by 15% per stack. This is kind of addressing the force issues that a lot of DPS sorcs and sages have, so all good stuff here. I don't see anything wrong with any of these changes. And I'm happy to see the Fade Out now available to all Sorcs and Sages and not just the healer ones. Next up, change to the Smash tree. We all know that last week or 2 weeks ago, they discussed the nerfing of Smash, which will not auto-crit and will not get the bonus damage on secondary targets. Only the primary target will be affected. Well, Courtney Woods lets us know that Smash will now have the bonus damage from Decimate that will work on secondary targets. Still no auto crits, but the bonus damage that you get will still be added. And this is definitely something that will cause some controversy between people. I could see how people could be on both sides of this one. Some people think that the original announced nerfs were a little too much for a spec that isn't necessarily as bad as the general populace thinks it is. And others were thinking that they deserved to be nerfed and really needed to be nerfed and should just let things be as they were. On this, I really don't know where I stand. I need to see where this plays, and that goes for a lot of these, which hopefully we'll be able to play next week when it goes live on the PTS. As far as we know, that's when we were told it would go live in the PTS. But I really need to see this working in action before making a judgment. What I do see with this is, without the auto crit on the ability, it will prevent the build where you just stack a whole ton of Surge on your Smash Sentinel or Smash Marauder. I don't know if that build was even still viable now, if that was the actual flavor of the month at the moment for the Smash spec, but that's kind of what I think they're doing here. Is without the auto crit you need to stack power, but now we will just see the Smash Guardians and Smash Sentinels and Smash Marauders stacking more power and more damage, because you will get the bonus damage still from Decimate. So I think we'll be moving away from the crit focus, surge focus build to the power focus build, if we haven't done that already. But I again have to see how this works out. I'm cautiously pessimistic about this one. Next up for the Guardian, they also have the Guardian Juggernaut. They also are getting the change to Smash, which is good for them. I think that they were, although they were the original Smash spec, they kind of fell out of favor in favor of the Sentinel Marauder Smash spec. So I'm glad they're getting a little bit more of a buff here. And maybe this should be a Guardian Juggernaut only thing where they get the bonus from Decimate on secondary targets. But who knows, maybe that should become a passive for picking the Guardian Juggernaut spec. We'll see how that works out. And finally, something that a lot of people dislike, but I actually really enjoy and really liked when I read this, is that Threatening Scream, which is the AoE taunt ability, now immediately reduces threat by a moderate amount while not in Soryasu form. Soryasu form is the tank stance for Juggernauts and Guardian. Wow, ooh, I got a super Jersey accent there. The Guardians. But the Juggernaut Guardian tank... wow. Why can't I say Guardian? Juggernaut Guardian stance, the tank stance, Soryasu form. So this is really cool. And first, let me get out of the way. The Threatening Scream will still work in PvP as a taunt. So you don't have to worry about that. It will give the reduced damage on other targets other than yourself if you use it in PvP. So this has no bearing on PvP at all. But I think this is a really interesting and cool way to handle ability bloat. And ability bloat is something that affects other MMOs, and as an MMO gets older, it's a major problem. When you give players too many abilities, it makes a lot of the abilities, you know, seem overwhelming, that you have too much stuff to do, too much stuff to handle, and you may say, well, just get better and learn how to deal with it. But there is definitely an optimal number of abilities that should be useful for a given spec or given class. I think it's cool that you have a bunch of tools in your kit, but I also think that some succinctness is definitely necessary to make your game really go and make your game work well and feel user-friendly. And I think by making a very niche ability for a DPS Guardian, yes, there are times where it is beneficial for a DPS Guardian to have an AoE taunt, but they still will have the single taunt for those corner cases where you do want a DPS tanking for some reason, which does happen. And you make this ability useful for the DPS Guardian. So yes, you're adding another ability to the DPS Guardian, but you took one away when you took out Focus Defense, and you made it into something useful. Now they have a no-cost threat drop for nothing, basically. They gain a lot by giving up a tiny little bit, and I think that's the way to avoid ability bloat, is to take existing things and figure out how you can repurpose them into something useful. So now you'll be putting your AoE taunt in your threat drop area, or button, or wherever that is on your hotkeys, and done. They don't have to add a new ability like they did with some other classes. They used ability that's already there, and I think that's a really cool, interesting, and neat way to handle it. So I also like that the RP way I justify it is that if you're in Soryasu form, you know you're screaming and taunting the enemy and making them come fight you. But if you're in the DPS forms, you're screaming and make the enemy afraid of you, and they don't want to hit you. So that's just how I justify it. You can justify it however you want, but I really like this change. Next up for the Sniper and Gunslinger, Entrench is no longer removed when you leave cover. This is Hunker Down on the Gunslinger. However, you must remain in cover to gain protection from Entrench. I think this is really cool. There are a lot of situations where you pop into Hunker Down, but you have to move. All of a sudden there's some AoE down or something like that. There is something you need to move away from. So this just doesn't punish you for those RNG times where that's where that happens. In PvP, this is also useful where it will allow you to hunker down. All of a sudden you have 4 or 5 guys on you. You can roll away and still be hunkered down and have that AoE protection that you gain from it. Have the CC reduction, the CC immunity that you gain from it while moving. Moving is one of the most important things in an MMO. Being able to move, being mobile is incredibly important. And this just adds a tiny bit more mobility to a spec that really is pretty immobile, even though they do have the roll. that's really all you have when you're a gunslinger or an operative. You kind of just get to sit down in a spot. And while I do like that it's different from most other specs in that fashion, I do think that adding a tiny bit more user-friendliness and usability, playability is good for the spec. Hold Your Ground, which is a talent, will now reduce the cooldown of shield probe by 3 to 6 seconds instead of 7.5 to 15. And while this looks like a nerf, they did discuss it last time that they would be changing this talent because they are reducing the base cooldown on shield probe. So you'll be able to use shield probe more often anyway, so now the talent that reduces the cooldown has to reduce it a little bit less so that it's not just free up all the time. So that's not too big a deal. The other big deal here is the change to Flashbang. Flashbang now only affects a single target, and I really don't like this change. This is a terrible change in my opinion. Flashbang is, the whole deal with the Flashbang is that it's AoE, and I don't think that the Flashbang is that oppressive of an ability. Yes, it is a area of effect CC, but it's different from all the other area of effect CCs in that it's area of effect and breaks on damage, so it's different from the carbonized spin from the Vanguard or Power Tech. So it's different, and you know how much I like diversity and different abilities. It's also extremely useful in many PvE scenarios. There are plenty of PvE scenarios where this is used. This isn't like the AoE taunt on a DPS Guardian. This is definitely an ability that is used in plenty of different fights in various different ways, and it's an important tool that I think will definitely be missed. And finally, I just don't think it's that oppressive an ability. Yes, getting flashbanged in a group is kind of annoying, but I think you need to know if you're facing against a sniper. Either you have to not group up and make it easy for them to flashbang you, have your CC breaker up, because it does create a significant amount of resolve when used, so it's not anything terrible there. You're gaining resolve if you get flashbang. And I think it kind of defeats the purpose of a flashbang. The whole idea of a flashbang is that it's area of effect. It's a giant flashing grenade that blinds everyone in the area that it hits. So this change just really doesn't make sense to me. I don't know. I don't like it. It is a small change, but it's one that I really dislike. And finally, the most talked about and probably the least favorite of all these changes is the change to the operative. Last week or 2 weeks ago, we discussed operative changes, and most of them were fine for DPS operatives. There were a couple nerfs to healing operatives, which they definitely needed, but there wasn't really anything to say about the DPS operative. And that made me think that the DPS operative was actually going to have some time to breathe. They were going to let the changes that happened in 2.6 play out and see what happened. And I discussed things with ThePummeler, who is an active operative, who's been playing for a long time, and he is on Twitter at ThePummeler. And we talked a little bit about the operative and where they stand. And the thing is that when you make changes to a class, obviously players are going to try and play that class. If you have multiple different characters and X class gets a buff, you're going to go into war zones and play that class just to try it out and see what happens. And when you have a bunch of operatives in mass, they are annoying no matter what. No matter how bad an operative gets, it is annoying when a bunch of stealth characters pop out and hit you. The same could be said about a Shadow. When a bunch of them are playing together, it's annoying no matter what. Is it oppressive? Maybe. Is it going to win every match? Probably not, because there are a lot of things that the operatives do lack. They're not a be-all, end-all awesome class, but when you have 3 characters popping out of stealth behind you backstabbing, and you're getting killed in a couple global cooldowns because 3 people are ganging up on you out of stealth, that's going to be oppressive, and I talked about that in the past, where stealth as a mechanic is annoying in PvP, but that doesn't mean it's overpowered. And when I spoke to ThePummeler, I asked him flat out, do you think that operatives were as bad as they were in pre-1.2 nerfs? And that's really when operatives were too bad, because it only took a single operative to really knock you down and kill you in a couple globals before you have any chance to respond. And that was actually one of the main reasons I stopped playing PvP on my gunslinger, was the fact that the operative, I can't think of his name. What was his name? I think his name was Turrican. It just hit me. I think his name was Turrican. He made me stop playing PvP because on my gunslinger, because I just couldn't stand being 3-shot on my gunslinger. Just popped out of stealth, knocked me down, and killed me. So if they're not anywhere near as bad as that, if they can't kill you in a couple global cooldowns now, and ThePummel points out that operatives are actually really easy to counter, just players don't understand how to counter them. Players instinctively, and this is how I would have changed the knockdown. And let me actually just go through the changes here quick before I continue talking. The flashbang for the operative also only affects a single target, but their passive preparedness that you get just for choosing the operative advanced class or the scoundrel advanced class allows it to hit 5 targets, so flashbang doesn't affect them. This changes to flashbang doesn't really affect them. The escape plan will now reduce shield probe by 3 to 6 seconds, same as the gunslinger. And then the big thing that I'm really talking about here is the fact that the ability that allowed the hidden strike to knock their opponent down, that's the ability that we all know and love, now just immobilizes the target. So it just snares them in place, which is ridiculous. And going back to how people don't really know how to counter operatives, and I didn't myself, because I am like most people, and I just use my breaker on the knockdown. But apparently that's just not how you do it. If you don't use the breaker on the knockdown, you wait out the knockdown, and break the stun that follows, you're A-okay. Then you have 100% chance to get out of that fight alive. But the knockdown gets broken by so many people. And ThePummel confirmed that, and I'm one of those people. And what I thought when I saw this change is, why do they have to do this? I think a big problem is actually the animation. The fact that it knocks you on your face, puts you in such a vulnerable position, it makes the ability seem scarier than it is. And if it really just was a hard stun, I think it would be less of a problem. As crazy as that sounds, if it was just the quick stun instead of the quick knockdown, it would be a lot less of a problem in my opinion. So I think the change to an immobilize is just absolutely crazy. And on top of that, the fact that it immobilizes the target in place is just so counterproductive to what an operative wants to do. An operative wants to get in there, knock you down, stun you, and try and kill you before you have any recourse, because they are not a one-on-one fighter. If the operative is in a face-to-face scenario with someone, then they're probably going to lose that one-on-one battle. In addition to that, the operative is a melee-only class. They have to be up close and personal to do what they need to do, and by immobilizing the target, it doesn't do anything. It might as well do nothing. Jarring Strike might as well have no effect on the target, because it's almost better if they try and run from you and not be doing damage and standing there and fighting you. But instead, it snares them in place, so basically the only thing they have to do is the thing they should be doing, which is turning and fighting you, or turning and knocking you back, or turning and stunning you. This change makes no sense. It takes away the essence of the operative, and it demonstrates no understanding about how the operative should be played. And like I said, I am not a pro operative, but talking to people, seeing how people respond to this, makes me really think that they just don't understand the key points of the operative and how concealment should be played. Because dirty fighting is okay, but concealment this change does not make sense for concealment. And operatives are not that bad anymore. The initial fervor behind the operative changes, behind concealment being valid, has kind of died down. And yes, it's still valid, but it's nowhere near oppressive. It's competitive, but not overpowered. And that's why I don't think this change should make it to live. And I hope with testing and the PTS, this change doesn't make it to live. And we can all hope for that, but we have no real basis of changes like that being made in the past. We see the Juggernaut changes being made, the the Sentinel, Guardian, Marauder changes to Decimate, where they put Decimate back in. But we haven't even played that on the PTS. We haven't even seen that. They're doing that based on internal testing, and hopefully this gets changed by internal testing or by public testing, and anything that needs to be changed gets changed by internal testing, because they need to utilize the PTS more, utilize the player base more, let them tell you what they feel and what they see, because they're the ones playing the game constantly. And I know you guys, the BioWare, I know they're playing the game constantly too, but there are just more players than there are developers by 10-fold, 20-fold, probably 50, 100-fold. BioWare should be crowdsourcing more of its balancing and kind of seeing where the best of the best see where things are. I said this on Twitter, and if you are the best of your class, then you probably understand when you're overpowered. So listen to those people. A lot of those people will probably admit when they're overpowered and they do need nerfs. And I don't think this was the case where that was happening. So I think there definitely is a disconnect there, and I really hope that the changes to Jarring Strike does not make it to the live game. And that's really all there is to the changes. There are plenty of more changes that we didn't discuss. I quickly realized that I didn't do a podcast last week, so I didn't get a chance to discuss the 2.7 changes. Some of them, most of them, are actually pretty good. I highly suggest you go to the forums and check them out. And that'll do it for this segment. After the break, we'll be talking about the end of Ranked Season 1, the rewards. They're pretty cool. And the downsides of the rewards. They're pretty bad. What am I talking about? We'll see after the break. In incredibly awesome news this week, ranked PvPers and PvPers in general were pleasantly surprised to learn that there were actually going to be rewards for Season 1 ranked PvP. I know, crazy to think that there might be rewards for that. In this post, they broke down the fact that rewards will be given in 5 tiers. So based on your rating, at the end of Season 1, and this is your highest rating achieved during the entire season. So don't worry about tanking your rating now if you're in a certain bracket and are afraid to go down. You can only improve your standing in the tiers by playing. Because it keeps your highest rating, don't worry about tanking your rating now and losing out on rewards. Just keep playing, try and get the best rating you can, and try and get to a higher tier. So the tiers are broken down from the rating of 1, which if you have a rating of 1, I think you should get like a super special reward, because that's an achievement in and of itself, to 1149, that is the tier 5, you will get a unique inaugural tier 5 title. I don't know how you get in this tier, because I thought you started at 1200, but maybe you started at 1100, whatever. If you are in this group, you get a unique title for Tier 5. It doesn't say what the title will be, but it will be unique to ranked PvP. So, and all of these require 10 matches to be complete. So don't just do 1 match, get your rating, and say, yay, I'm going to get the title. You have to complete 10 matches of ranked PvP in either solo or group play. The Tier 4 is 1150 to 1224, and this has a unique Tier 4 title and a mini pet. Alright, nice. I kind of think that was expected. A mini pet for being in Tier 4. Cool. Tier 3, which is from 1225 to 1299, you get a unique Tier 3 title. So there's going to be 5 different titles. Each ranking has its own unique title. You get a unique tier 3 title, a mini pet, and a ranked 1 season armor set. So you can see it on the website. It's pretty cool. It has like a Dreadmaster theme. It's kind of purple and red. I'm not sure if that's for both sides or if that's the Sith side and we don't see the other side, but it's pretty cool. We also don't know if it's unique to just everyone or if each class is going to have its own set. I don't know, but it's kind of cool looking. I like it, even though it's kind of Dreadmaster themed. It's not really Star Warsy to me. I know people will like it. Next up, Tier 4 from 1300 to 1499. This is a pretty high rating to achieve this one. You get a Tier 2 title, a mini pet, Season 1 ranked armor set, and Season 1 weapon set. So again, I don't know how this works, if it'll just get you a weapon for the class you get it on, but the weapon looks pretty neat. It has like the flashing effects like the Kmzh weapons do, so that's pretty cool. I think a lot of players will like that. And then, of course, the Tier 5, the highest tier you can achieve by getting a rating of over 1500. You get a unique title, a mini pet, the ranked armor, the ranked weapon set, and Jabba the Hutt's Rancor mount. That's right, a Rancor freaking mount is what you can get for getting above 1500. That is as badass as it gets, and I'm telling you, it looks cool. It says it's not to scale here, so it'll probably be the same size as like the Tauntaun mount and the other mounts. It's kind of scaled down from actual size, but still, that is friggin' awesome. You still have some time to do it. Ranked Season 1 doesn't end till 2.7 launches next in April. I think 2.7 launches. So you have plenty of time to get out there and do it. I've heard plenty of stories of people actually PvPing because they see what the actual rewards are, and this mount looks really cool. So amazing how players will actually do stuff when there's a carrot at the end of the stick here. And this is a pretty big old carrot. It's a Rancor at the end of the stick, and people love Rancors. People are talking about queues popping during the day, queues popping fast at prime times. It's crazy, and it's awesome, and I'm happy to see that ranked PvP finally has something. And we'll talk about the downer news later, but I'm going to go over to the Great Utinicast site. Again, if you're listening to this podcast and you don't know who the Utinicast are, who the hell are you? But they have done a great breakdown of the player rankings right now, because they've been breaking down stuff from the leaderboards on the website. And even though this is only current ranking, they can't get a highest ranking from players on the leaderboard because that's just not information that you can get out of the leaderboards. They show that currently there are 43.9% of players in that Tier 5, 28.2% of players in Tier 4, 15.8% of players in Tier 3, 9.3% players in Tier 2, and Tier 1. They actually have the tiers reversed here from what they have on the website. On the website, they have Tier 5 being the highest, but here they have Tier 1 being the highest. But in Tier 1, 2.8% of players are there right now. And the devs have said there have been goalposts confirming the fact that they've based this Tier 1 around about 5% of players playing ranked PvP will be able to achieve the Tier 5 and get that Rancor mount. So not only is it awesome, it's going to be super rare, and it's going to be really, well, for at least the time being, it will be super rare. And this is based off of 28,000 players playing, so that's a pretty sizable chunk of players playing in ranked PvP, which is good. And it also is based off of an average player rating from players playing of ranked war zones, and on the leaderboard right now, the average player is 1169. That would put them squarely in Tier 4, almost Tier 5. But the average player will be able to sneak into Tier 4 and get that unique mini pet, which is cool, good for the average player. The thing that I'm sure you all want to hear me talk about is the follow-up gold post. So let's just go through the story of the Rancor mount. As soon as the Rancor mount was announced, plenty of players were extremely happy, but many people were very pessimistic about the rarity of that item. I myself went to the forums and posted on the SWTOR subreddit about if the rewards would cause more players to play, if you would play because you saw the cool Rancor mount. And overwhelmingly, players said that they would be more willing to play ranked PvP because of the Rancor mount, even though only 5% of the player population will be able to get it. So that's awesome, and that's something that BioWare should be very proud of themselves for putting something out there that will make players want to play. So good for them. But quickly I realized that this probably won't be a unique mount. So I asked players if they would still feel the same urge to play if it was offered as a cartel market item, which I would assume at some point it would be. So players were more mixed at this point, I think swinging more towards positive, but obviously on the SWTOR subreddit you have a small community of players. This is a completely scientific poll that I took there. So it definitely does matter if this is available in other places. So immediately I went to Twitter and I asked Eric Musco a question because someone on the SWTOR subreddit, and I want to call this person out because thank you, whoever this was. Let me get their name before I just completely steal their idea, that their point. And this was here, Kmzh from Jedi Covenant on the SWTOR subreddit makes a wonderful point, and that is they have not released any of the Nightmare Mode mounts on the cartel market yet. There is no tank on the cartel market. There is no Titan 6 on the cartel market. There isn't even the car mount on the cartel market, the black one that was from Nightmare Karaga. That's not even there. So they haven't released those yet. They've shown an ability and some restraint to not release some of the most rare mounts in the game on the cartel market. So I asked Eric Musco on the forums, on Twitter directly. I tweeted him and asked them. Let's see exactly how I worded the question here so I can be completely forthright. I asked him, where is it? So far, BioWare Austin has not released a rare endgame mount reskin, so the tank, Titan 6, etc. on the cartel market. Is this by philosophy or just coincidence? And now let me just say that Eric Musco is a community manager. He should be abreast of everything, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he is up to date on every single philosophy and every single thing that the developers are doing, so don't kill the messenger. But he said that he would have to ask around to be 100%, but I'm pretty positive, 99%, that is philosophy. So that was something that was super positive, and I was super happy to see. And I was getting ready to sit here and extol the virtues of BioWare and their restraint and their ability to actually put some stuff out there that is super rare and super unique, that isn't just reskinned and put on the cartel market. Because say what you will, but a reskin is basically the same thing as just releasing them out on the cartel market. Yes, there are differences, and yes, people will know that there is something different. And yes, people will know that there is something cooler and something cooler looking. But if you get a Rancor mount, you have a Rancor mount. It doesn't matter what color it is, what it looks like, if it's shiny blue or shiny green or, you know, golden. If you have a golden Rancor mount, it's basically the same thing. It's just a different color. And you know me, there needs to be things in MMOs that make players feel special, and there also needs to be things in MMOs that certain people can't have, because what you can't have, you want and you work towards. Just look at how fast queues are popping now. People, even though they know or might not know that they will probably not get this Rancor mount, because only 5% of players are going to end up getting the Rancor mount, and 95% of players aren't. I'm sure there are plenty of people in that 95% who are playing thinking, yeah, I could get it, it could be me. And you know what? It could be you. If you do work hard enough, you could move from that 95% to that 5%. And that is something that should be encouraged in MMOs. Make things unique. Not everything has to be unique. There are plenty of things that you are more than welcome to reskin out there. There are hundreds and thousands of things that you can reskin, and you can make cool things that are just cartel market items. That's awesome. That's fine. I am 100% okay with really cool looking things going on the cartel market, and I will pay for them if I want them. And that's fine. That is 100% okay. That is an avenue where you make your money. But there needs to be a separation from the super unique and super cool endgame rewards that you're getting players to play your game for that can be earned solely through in-game things. There is the whole aspect of not wanting to burn code, and you need to make your money on things that you're working towards. But Bioware needs to be a little bit less short-sighted here. Yes, you might make some money up front when you put it on the cartel market, but how many players are you losing because there's really nothing for them, there's no incentive for them to play the game. They don't want to play your game anymore because there aren't rewards they're getting for playing your game. The game might be fun, but if you're not getting rewarded for it, there are other games you can go that are also fun, and you feel rewarded for doing and for playing the game well. So there need to be carrots at the end of the stick. Like I said, there needs to be a Rancor at the end of the stick that you can't just bypass with money. Because yes, you might make some money off of it, but you're also putting some players off by doing that same thing. It's similar to the whole pay-to-win aspect. And I know Bioware has done an amazing job not going for pay-to-win. But pay-to-win is one of those things that's so off-putting that no matter how fun your game is, people will just see the pay-to-win aspects of it and not want to play it. And this is another thing like that. Players will look at this, and no matter what the scenario is, players look at this, and you'll put it on the cartel market, and people will see, hey, they're putting the super rare endgame rewards, the things that people have really worked hard for. All that work that you're working hard for is just going to go to naught because they're just putting the item on the cartel market also. You can just buy your way to the endgame stuff. And reskin or not, say what you want about reskins, it's not the same thing. Making unique models, making unique things for those people to have that aren't reskinned, that are never redone, is important. And it is just like pay to win. Players will say, hey, I'm not being adequately rewarded for working hard in the game, and they will just leave. And that is a very real thing. Players need to feel like they're working hard for something in-game and not just working hard and buying things in-game. Because that's the same exact thing as pay to win. Players don't like pay to win because it makes your work and effort in-game feel meaningless because you can just pay through the work and effort. And while this in itself is not pay to win, it has the same principles as pay to win. And that's just a bad thing. And I really hope that we see a reversal on this. I don't expect it to happen, but I really hope that they do continue that philosophy that they have for the nightmare mounts, for the ranked PvP rewards. And you know what, I had a discussion with Galdarian, who is leaving the SWTOR community, but he's been on many different fan sites. He's a great guy. And I was discussing with him, he thinks that there should be rewards that are solely PvE based. And he thinks that this Rancor mount should be solely PvP based, player versus player based. And I disagree with him. I think that there shouldn't be a distinction between the super hardcore PvEers and the super hardcore PvPers in the rewards they get. If you want a super cool looking Rancor mount, you should be able to get it through whichever means you like to play the game. But I also understand his point in that you need to make your players feel wanted in what they are doing, and you have to make them feel like they're working for something important in what they're doing. And if you want to make PvPers feel special on their own by giving them a mount, I'm okay with that. Would I prefer you would be able to get it in Nightmare Operations, which you are going to be able to with this Rancor mount apparently, or PvP? That's what I would prefer, but any way you can to make a player feel special in a world of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of players, is how you get players excited and happy in an MMO. And that's all you have to do. I'll harp on it till the end of time. MMOs need to make the individual feel special in a sea of thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of people. And how you do that is unique items and rewards like the Rancor mount. And make that special. And don't put that on the cartel market. That's what people want to get out of their MMO. That's how you make players happy. That's how you turn public opinion. That's how you make the press happy. That's how you make the players happy. That's how you get people on forums saying how great the game is. You don't make decisions that minimize the importance of hard work and effort in a game. You don't make decisions that minimize the skill of the best and the brightest, because the best and the brightest, that trickles down to the players below them. And I just really hope that they change. They change back to their philosophy, which apparently they did have, because if Eric Musco tweeted on the forums that he was almost 100% sure that it was by philosophy that they have not released a Nightmare Mode mount on the cartel market, then at some point I would guarantee that was their philosophy. He wouldn't make that up out of nowhere, and he especially would not tweet that to someone on Twitter out of nowhere. He had some basis to make that decision, and had some basis to say that. So I really hope they go back to that philosophy and never print this on the cartel market ever, and never print any Nightmare Mode mounts on the cartel market, and never print any of the ranked season rewards on the cartel market. You could see the deflation in the PvP community immediately when they announced that you could see these things in the cartel market, and that hype that they built, it was so good. Players that felt so neglected and were so negative about the game were changing their tune based on a single mount. That's all it was. A single mount changed the perception from plenty of players. So I'm just ranting at this point. I don't even know what I'm talking about, but change it back, make it unique, don't put it on the cartel market. Simple as that. Don't do it. And I think we'll have a better game. Well, that was a pretty good one. Now that you've listened to me rant for the past 15 minutes, I will go to the wall of crazy.
What? That's impossible even for a computer. It's not impossible. I used to bullseye womp rats in my T16 back home. They're not much bigger than 2 meters.
This week's Wall of Crazy topic comes from Phoenix at Druidsfire on Twitter. She is a popular blogger out there. You can check out her blog at druidsfire.com, and I suggest you go head over there. She talks a lot about different MMOs, LOTRO and SWTOR and other things, so definitely go ahead and give that a look. But she suggests a Jedi wielding a blaster like the one that was announced to be in Rebels, which is the new Star Wars cartoon. And first, let me just give a special shout out to Justin Sandu, Sanudo. I'm gonna say Sanudo. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name here, but I'm very bad at pronouncing names. Very bad at pronouncing names. Who suggested player bounties, which was going to be what I went with until I made one last final check and saw this this Twitter post here. And a Jedi wielding a blaster is very cool, and it kind of scratches an itch on something that really annoys me. And that's the fact that a lightsaber is actually an incredibly ineffective weapon. It's a sword, and swords are close combat weapons. Yes, you can throw a lightsaber, fine. But what do you do when someone is far out of your reach? Well, you shoot at them. If you watch the original trilogy, there were plenty of shots of Luke carrying a blaster around, even though he has a lightsaber. That's fine, because when someone is out of your reach, you need to be able to shoot them down. And a Jedi wielding a blaster just makes sense. Everyone should wield a blaster in the Star Wars universe. I don't understand why you would just walk around with a lightsaber. Maybe it goes against the Force or something like that. I don't really know that much about the extended universe, but I think that a Jedi wielding blaster is a very cool idea. So, thank you at Druidsfire. I'm happy to see the Star Wars Rebels having a Jedi wielding blaster. Yes, I know it kind of goes into the flippancy of Jedi and mixing together Luke and Han, and that kind of rubs people the wrong way. Maybe it rubs me a little bit the wrong way, but I think it's a cool idea, and I hope to see something like that in the future. I don't know if we'll ever see another class added to the game. I think it'll just be too difficult. They've talked about that at several community cantinas, but maybe an advanced class where your Jedi wields a blaster would be cool. Maybe a Jedi Knight, Sith Warrior kind of differentiation. And while we're talking about different weapons, I also just want to get this random opinion out there that I really think that they made a misfire when concepting the game on a couple of different classes with what weapons they wield. I really think that the Sith Assassin should be a dual-wield lightsaber class, and the Juggernaut should be the dual-blade class for those sides. I think it just is a little bit cooler. I think makes a little bit more sense. I feel like the double-wielded lightsaber on the Sith side is a little bit more tanky to me. I don't know why I think that, I just do. I think it makes a little bit more sense for a tank to wield the dual-wielding lightsaber, and I think it makes a little bit more sense for an assassin to have 2 blades. I think that's where I would put that. And then one other minor gripe is the fact that the commando and mercenary in every cutscene they're in have an offhand blaster, like a blaster pistol, and I just don't see why they don't have an offhand blaster pistol in their game. That maybe at some point they did, but they both wield the generators, and I don't see why that just couldn't be a blaster pistol. It has the same mods and stuff in it. They have tanking pistols. If you look at the power tech, they use they use a rifle, but whatever, it's all modifications, and that's just a couple of random things about weapons in SWTOR that I feel like they should have done that they didn't. But anyway, after that weird tangent, thanks @DruidFire for the suggestion. Jedi wielding a blaster would be something completely crazy, which is what I asked people on Twitter to give me this week for the Wall of Crazy. I wanted to hear your craziest idea you can think about putting in the game, and thank you for that one. And that'll do it for today's show. Last week's, and this will be 2 weeks ago's, Taunfaun topic was for you to give me something or other. I don't remember what it was. It was 2 weeks ago. I should have wrote it down. But anyway, I picked a random winner of the people that did it. And Redna of the UtiniCast, who I already talked about, won. So congratulations, Redna. I'm sure one of your guildies or yourself will be very happy to have the Taunfaun. And I wrote this question for this week's Taunfaun question last week when Valentine's Day was out there. But I just want to know, for this week's Taunfaun, if you'd like to win Taunfaun code, all you have to do is tweet @GTEG, @GTEG on Twitter, that's me. Tweet me, who is your favorite companion in game? It could be your lover companion, or it could just be your favorite companion. I don't care. But who is your favorite companion in the game for Valentine's Day? Hashtag Taunfaun @GTEG, and I'll pick a random winner next week to win the code. I also want to do a special shout out to the Bad Feeling Podcast, which is a new SWTOR podcast, which I'd like to highlight whenever I can. The SWTOR podcast community is great. They're very, very casual, so you're not going to get your hardcore operations guides out of them. But I just really enjoy them. They have a good chemistry, those two guys. Great radio voices, and just nice, easy listening for the morning. First thing in the morning when I get to work, I'll pop them on, and it's a good way to start my day. So check them out. And then finally, I want to give a sad shout out to Tor Wars. I guess it's not so sad because Dee of Tor Wars, who's been on this podcast, was on one of my first episodes of the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast. She is moving on from the Tor Wars fan site. She actually got a job in the community team of WildStar. And I hope the very best for her. I hope that WildStar does great, and she does great over there. And I wish her all the best in all her future endeavors. And sadly, that means that Tor Wars will be becoming a ghost town, will no longer be updated. It will still be up there, I believe, for the time being. But they're just not going to update it anymore. No more Tor Wars podcasts, which is sad. That was the first podcast I ever got into in SWTOR very early on in the game. Even before the game launched, I was listening to Tor Wars, so thank you guys for all the hard work that you've put in over the long haul, all the writers there. Any of the writers are more than welcome. I'm sure all the writers there have other better places to go, but you're more than welcome to submit any opinion pieces for GataGaming.com on any gaming topic you would like, including SWTOR. And that goes for any of you. If I guess I could open up my website to writers. If you have an opinion that you'd like to write about, or even a podcast that you'd like to do, or a short opinion piece or anything like that, you're welcome to write it on my website. I don't know why you would, because my website is kind of noobish, but it's there at GataGaming.com. So if you don't have any other place to go, I'm happy to host whatever. So just go ahead and email me, gatateague@gatagaming.com. Anyway, whoa, this is the longest outro I've ever done. This is ridiculous. Gotta clean up, finish up, gotta go. Alright, if you're a class rep and would like to get on the podcast and discuss your class, I know a lot of class changes are being announced, as we discussed in the first segment, so if you know a class rep or are a class rep and want to just talk about your class, you're welcome on the show. If you're listening to this, hopefully next week I'll be covering the patch 2.7 PTS. So if you have any emails, questions, comments, concerns regarding the patch 2.7 PTS, I'll be covering it on my YouTube channel as always, and you can email me questions for next week, and maybe I'll make your question into a segment for next week. As always, if you'd like to contact me, you can send your questions, comments, and concerns to gaddockteague@gaddockgaming.com, or you can tweet them to @gteague on Twitter. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes to get your weekly podcast updates, and if you're new to the game or thinking of resubscribing, I've provided my refer friend link in the show notes, so if you'd like a little added incentive to come back to the game, feel free to use it. You can also check out my website, gaddockgaming.com, where I post the podcast, all my videos, and anything you guys write that you happen to send to me that you want posted somewhere. I'm happy to do that. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast. I don't know why I said it that way. This is JD, signing off.